with the private operators in the spirit of expanding the communications network in the country. And what do we mean by that? If I have a mast owned by, I don't want to incur the cost of putting up a mast, but that mast can be utilized for telecommunication services, they should come to us and they provide services to the citizens. Because there will be no interference whatsoever, given the nature of technology that broadcasting uses, as well as telecommunications. In the same spirit, we have suggested in that policy that the operators, especially the telecom operators, consider and implement what we call national roaming. For those of you who have been to the border in Busia, you roam involuntarily. Yes. As soon as you get to the border, your phone picks Safaricom. Isn't it? So when they call you, they charge you as if you're roaming, but in your own country, but Safaricom signal is what you're on. Now the argument, I've gone to China Mukaka, where there is no network. Why can't Airtel carry me? Isn't it? So we are saying that we should have a mechanism where there is national roaming as a mechanism of expanding access to communication services within the country. And it is possible. Because for those of you who go to Nairobi, or wherever it is, it's very easy and it's extremely affordable. So that should be able to increase the access of communication services in the country. Having said that, we are here as consumers. We are going to interrogate and ask the operators a number of questions. But I think it's also important that we also reflect on our usage of communication services. Because it's extremely important that as a community, as a society, as Ugandans, we use communication services responsibly. Otherwise, we shall cause unnecessary problems to ourselves. So I think as we interrogate the operators, it is imperative that we as well think about the aspect of spreading news that is fair and inaccurate, and we know it. So you do it, they pick it, the radios pick it, and then amplify it and cause unnecessary attention. So as I conclude my remarks, I want to emphasize technology, first of all, converged. So we live in a converged environment. Today, here and now, I can watch multi-choice on my phone. Because I've connected my subscription to my phone. You are ordering taxis. I'm sure even chairman, I'm sure even in your district here, there is Uber. Isn't it? The mayor can advise, there is Uber. Isn't it? So what does that mean? That the way we operate and the way we do things is changing every other day. Isn't it? So, because the way we do things is changing, as government, we have also decided that we shall integrate all IT systems in the country. In other words, we shall integrate our NIRA database with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, with the Ministry of Works, such that as a citizen, it is not necessary for you to repeatedly provide information which you've provided to NIRA if you're going to get the driver's license. For Face Technologies that issues driver's licenses, to interrogate the other one by provision of your name, and then you get your driver's license without necessarily filling in the endless forms. Now, because we recognize that is personal data, we have gone further and put together a law which is data protection and privacy, to ensure that anybody who holds your personal data uses it responsibly without abuse. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those not so many remarks, I beg to declare this Consumer Parliament open and wish you very fruitful deliberations. I thank you. Madam Speaker, take out.
For being with us, for submitting, and for opening this Parliament officially. I know you all must be dying with issues, but please hold your peace until plenary time. May I now call upon UCC to present.
Our guest of honor, all protocols observed. The Uganda Communications Commission will give a brief account of what we are doing in a way of discussion that probably will trigger the discussion moving forward. A number of questions may be answered, or even probably newer questions may be formed in this regard. In the previous two consumer parliaments, a number of issues have been raised, and I have only picked a few that I would want to make comment on because there is progress made in that direction. Issues of quality of service, issues of visibility of the Commission's consumer protection mandate. The advocacy felt it is missing. Issues of counterfeit products, especially phones on the market. Issues of promoting local content. We had issues, especially I think it was the 6th Consumer Parliament, which was focused largely on broadcasting, and people felt that in spite of the efforts of the regulator, we still did not feel the local content on our media. There was also an issue of witchcraft and fraudsters on the airwaves. This was something that was very pertinent when we were in Fourth Portal, and probably you must have had some few actions as I will deliberate. So, what I'm having is a discussion on what has transpired in some of these areas. So you realize that areas that probably we have not made significant progress may not be part of this presentation, but you're free to highlight them as we move ahead. Quality of service. The Commission has undertaken quality of service monitoring and measurement. We produced a report that compares the quality of service measurements for 2017 and 2018. This was published in the papers, it has been on social media, it's accessible on our website. So if you can't see the graphs I've put on the other end, that's no problem, but it is only one aspect to pick. Two aspects that are significant in quality of service of voice, which is probably the largest kind of ICT we're using, is issues to do with dropped calls and blocked calls. Ideally, the target for every telecommunication operator in terms of voice is that for every 100 calls you make, only 2 should drop. That is the quality of service target. For every 100 calls you initiate, only 2 are allowed to be blocked. That is the standard. So the graph over there has lines that move like that, which show the target that we are looking at. Now, the graphs you see there basically are to do with dropped calls, and the message on that chart is that on average, all our telecommunication operators did fairly well when it came to dropped calls, meaning that you can initiate a call and without you dropping a call. That is what the measurement is saying there. All operators did fairly well. Of course, if you see any of the bars that is above the line, I think you can see a blue over there. I have my sisters there who are in blue, so we shall ask the questions to those ones. Why is that blue above the target? But in terms of dropping calls, we did well. Why is that significant? In the first consumer parliament, our advocates said that telcos were cheating consumers an amount of $500 million. I think it even made headlines through dropped calls. Why? They felt that every time you make a call, especially if you are on a per minute price plan, and you speak for a second and you drop a call, you are charged the minutes. So that means you're being cheated. The progress since then, we are saying, at least today, we do not have as bad a service to drop calls to cheat you as it was previously. The second aspect, which is an issue of blocked calls. When you initiate a call and actually it's either waiting, busy, you cannot access your customer, your friend, or your client, that is an aspect based on the monitoring where on average all operators performed poorly. Okay? So across the country, this survey was done in seven districts. All operators performed relatively poorly when it came to blocking calls. Now, usually I have a response for that, but since we have the operators in here, we will ask them that question. Why do we still have dropped calls in an era where ICTs and technology, we're talking 4G for God's sake, isn't it? 3G, so they will tell us what is happening in that regard. But on our part as a regulator, it is important for consumers to know, because one, on our part and the operators, we usually look out for corrective measures. What went wrong? What plans do you have to make good? Where is the problem? But also for a consumer, you need to know how your service provider is faring. I always tell people, why do you stick with a guy who is not doing well? I mean, we have a range of operators. So this is about naming and shaming. If your operator is not doing well, you switch to the next guy who is doing better. Yes, it may sound funny and interesting, but it is also ironic. We have had issues of counterfeit products on the market, and the Commission has upgraded its type approval regime. Type approval is when we give authorization for terminal devices to be authorized to work in a country. A couple of years, we have had issues with the regulations and so on. This regime has been upgraded. Take, for example, all our operators, as part of a licensing term and condition, are required to comply with type approval of the Commission. What am I saying? You are safer buying something like a terminal device from a licensed operator because there is a stick and carrot if they sell you something that is a counterfeit, than if you went on the open market from somebody who is not licensed. Because we have also business people that deal in ICTs that may not necessarily be licensed by the Commission. This has been approved also, or improved to the extent that the Commission has imported equipment, software that we call the Central Equipment Identity Registry. This has actually been paid for by the guys over there, so we could clap for them. What this equipment is going to do is that other than we running after you in your shop, in your kaduka, and in your home, we are going to sensitize the public and notify you that on a certain date X, if you are buying a new phone that is counterfeit, meaning it is non-type approved, it will not be able to connect on the network. That equipment gives us that ability. So, meaning that we're going to teach you as consumers to be able to check a phone as you buy it. We are debating in the Commission that the phones that we already have, probably we leave them die a natural death, because we have research that says a counterfeit phone lives for about 6 to 1.5 years, okay? We may, that is still into consideration, but people like traders, importers, that system will work straight away. so that a new phone connecting on the network has to be genuine, authentic, so that our quality of service also improves. A secret, when you have a counterfeit terminal device, okay, by the nature of the way networks are designed, you also affect the quality of service of other people on that network. So those guys are saying, we have good technology, we have good networks, but the terminal devices receiving the communication are not good. If we are to improve quality of service, both ends have to be good. Good terminal devices, good network. As the Commission, we handle your complaints. We like to call them second-level complaints. Why? In our regulatory affairs, we expect that one, you report a complaint to the service provider. If you remain dissatisfied, you come to a regulator. What that means is that usually we have few complaints that come to us because the bulk of complaints are actually taken care of by people who are licensed and mandated to do so. Even the complaints that come to us, interestingly, 90% of them, again, are resolved by the same people who did not resolve them in the first place. Okay? So we can say that they're doing a good job. But just to show you what we're doing, for the last year, the complaints we received, out of about 2,000 complaints and queries received, the complaints that were investigated were 176. That's warranted investigation. And they were in those classifications there. Now, the larger ones you see are the most problematic complaints we have had. So SIM card registration was the most biting issue last year. It was the most biting issue. We have issues of billing over there. We also have issues of data and bundles, the Gonias of this world. There are still issues, and we hope that some of the responses will get. But that is important for you to know, because we can only help you if you work with us, if you can exercise your right to complain. Issues of local content. The Commission instituted local content quotas, where we say that for certain genres, certain types of content, like dramas, documentaries, children's programs, and sports, we wanted broadcasters to carry 70% of local content within prime time. The performance is as such. So from 2013 to date, that is how we have progressed. The picture is not so good, but that picture also tells you that in response to the local content quotas, most broadcasters have now taken on more dramas. As a regulator, we feel it is a positive in the right direction, because that means the people who are producing dramas probably now have jobs and basically are getting money out of their content. However, the broadcasters came up with a complaint and said, why are you focusing on prime time? Prime time is between 6 and 10 or 11 in the night. We have a lot of other local contents outside prime time. So recently we have readjusted the calculation of local content to take a bigger spectrum of the day. So you will find that a lot has been going on in sensitizing broadcasters about this. And we have found correctly that when we talk about local content in itself, in a 24-hour span for broadcasting, broadcasters carry 80% of local content today. However, the local content within the measurement window, previously, which was prime time, was only about 50%, and yet we are targeting 70%. Why is that good? We have actually come from probably 20% when we started in 2013 to now 50% of local content in the measurement window. It is progress, and we're still making headway in that direction. We are also having interventions in the promotion of internet safety on the internet. This is an aspect that was not very strong at the Commission. We now basically commemorate Safer Internet Day. We have a campaign, a 6-month-long campaign going into schools to teach youth and young people how to be safe online. So that agenda we have, the Commission, by the help of the government, we have set up a cyber emergency response team. These are people who can anticipate, predict, see attacks that come into the country online and can advise individuals, companies, institutions on how to mitigate, protect, and put up appropriate defenses. So, Safety Online is ongoing, still young in the Commission because many of you do not know that we have this service. We are making our efforts to make people know about the same. We also have come up with the requirement for online publishers to register with the Uganda Communications Commission. Why? The Uganda Communications Act of 2013 requires that if you are engaged in data communication, you have to have authorization, because under the laws of Uganda, the regulations, standards, and guidelines, you have to abide by certain principles, broadcasting standards, because if you're doing data communication, you are actually broadcasting. That is something that has come, that is fairly new in the area. Many people are still asking why. We're doing our job to sensitize, but other countries are also doing the same. I think in Egypt, anybody, even when you own a Facebook account, as long as you have 5,000 people following you, you have to register. Because ideally when you communicate, you're communicating simultaneously to a large audience. And that has to be regulated in accordance to laws. Usually the communication laws in many countries are not very different. There are a few tweaks here and there. Our intervention on issues of persons with disability, the Commission has been hit for a long while that we have neglected that aspect. By mandate, we are mandated to do research and promote technologies and ICTs that enable persons with disability. I'm glad to report that we have completed, as of last year, a study on the inclusion of persons with disability in the ICT sphere. It has very powerful recommendations that are being taken up right from the ministry in terms of policy, and also we as a regulator. As a principle, I may say, you have seen the sign language that has now come on many of the broadcasting houses. The Persons with Disability Act requires that a sign language interpretation has to appear in at least one bulletin a day of a broadcaster. We have put that in effect. It is happening right now, and the Uganda Communications Commission is actually sponsoring the sign language from the UBC. Okay? Other broadcasters have done followed suit on their initiative, and there's a lot to come in here. Under the RCDF, under the broadband rollout, there's a lot of provisions for persons with disability, so the good things are ahead of us. Issues of banning scratch cards. This has been something that has been mentioned in all our engagements, and Madam Speaker, I would like to say, to inform the August House, that scratch cards are not coming back. So it is important that we take heart, but also understand that the sector, meaning the operators with the regulators, have taken it upon themselves that if you are in an area and you cannot access airtime, you please notify the operator or the regulator. They will register stockists in that area to make sure that you can access airtime. A secret, I hope that the telcos do not know this. These telcos, their lifeblood is airtime. You cannot invest in a network and it is idle when there are people who do not have airtime. It is in their interest for you to have airtime. So you only have to exercise your right, make the noise, and somebody will be registered there. So there's a lot of effort. I don't want to go back in the background of why they were removed, but I'll tell you, in the fourth industrial revolution that the world is entering, these paperless things have no room. SIM card registration gaps. Many people have told us about the gaps in SIM card registration. My registration for mobile money is inconsistent with my SIM card registration. We have things of the kind. And yes, there are efforts underway as we speak. Some of you may already have been contacted by your operators. We've given operators up to 1st of May to make sure that they harmonize registration. We're not talking about re-registration. No, we are saying, I registered with an ID previously, okay? Then they called for a national identification number. But because I didn't have one, I used my sister's. So what the operator has in his database is my name, but it's attached to somebody else's name. Okay? In the principles of registration, yes, you're registered, but currently we expect that somebody is fully registered with biometrics. So these people are making a validation, back the scene, reaching out to you to make sure that you update your registration and also do the harmonization. The reason it was done that way is that to avoid the stampede, this business of going into the papers and media and say, oh, deadline, and everybody begins running and taking time off work. So it is being done at back end, and we have already got feedback where people are asking, is this a UCC affair or it is a telecom affair? The sector is basically cleaning up for the good of us all. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission was mindful, I think, a study, which part of it we will hear today here, did mention that the visibility of the regulator is chini kidogo. People did not feel that they can exercise their rights, and it is true. In one of those studies, people were asked, especially on the broadcasting side, who regulates broadcasters, like television and radio? We were embarrassed where the majority of the people said, thank you. The majority of people said that UBC was the regulator of the broadcasting sector. So as a regulator, we were embarrassed that yes, even the people that we are trying to protect do not know who they have to fall back to when issues come. To enhance this, one, we introduced a new toll-free line. Why do we call it new? We had a previous toll-free line, 0800 133 911. But we were shocked to learn that even our own staff members in the Commission, none of them could remember that toll-free line. So we say, if our staff cannot remember toll-free line,